Erev Sukkos. Today's daf is daf Tzadik Daled Amud Aleph. We'll begin from Tzadik Gimel and Beis, the very last line. The Mishnah basically told us if there were 4 wives and the husband died, so each wife, obviously chronologically, are entitled to the assets. So the first wife is entitled to whatever her ksuva, and once she got paid out, then the next wife gets the remainder, and the following wife gets whatever's left over that, and the fourth wife gets what's left over from that. It mentioned 4 wives because that's the maximum that a person should marry is 4 wives. As
What
we learned
page?
before,
What page are we
the
on?
very last line, 9, it's Tzadik Gimel Beis.
95A1.
And Nun base.
Tzadik Gimel Amud Beis on the very bottom.
93.
Very last 4 words. Because the maximum a person can marry is 4 wives in order to fulfill the mitzvah of marital relations Friday night, at least once a month with every one of them. Anyway, then we had an argument with Mishnah Tanakama and Benanas. Because what happens is when the first wife comes to collect the ksuba, she swears to the second wife that I have not taken any of the properties yet, and my husband hasn't given me any money. It's called Chashina Litzrari. He hasn't given me anything yet, so I'm still due the entire amount that's written in the ksuba. And then the second wife swears to the third, and the third to the fourth. But the Tanakhama says the fourth one has no reason to swear, because everyone else already collected whatever they're due, and therefore the fourth one doesn't swear. However, Banana says, just because she's the last one, she doesn't have to swear. Why should she benefit? So she should also swear. And the Gemara wants to know, what is the crux of the argument between the Tanakama and Bananas, whether the fourth wife has to swear or not? What's the argument? Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, we are on the very top of Tzadik Daled Amud Aleph. So Shmuel says, what happens, it turns out to be that one of the fields, it was actually a stolen field, which means that one of the women who collected their property, it turns out to be that she will have to give it up, and she now has to collect another property. And the problem is that all the other properties are already distributed, including the fourth wife. And the question is, let's say wife number 2 loses her property, can she go to wife number 4 and say, hey, that property belongs to me, because the property that I took turned out to be was a stolen property, even though you took it legally, but now it turned out to be retrospectively you had no right to, so give it back to me. And the question is, in this case, do we say whatever the fourth wife took, since she took it legitimately, Masha Gova, whatever she took, and the second wife cannot take it back or not? And that's going to be the crux of the argument. Because if the second wife can take it back, therefore, why should the fourth wife swear at all? It doesn't impact anybody. But if you tell me that the fourth wife's seizure is a good seizure and the second wife cannot take it back, so the fourth wife needs to swear that she didn't get paid from her husband some other way. And that's the argument over here. And the way Rashi learns is that right now we don't know which wife actually is the one that's missing out, that's going to lose the field. We have no idea, because otherwise, why allow the fourth one to take it all? Just take it before she takes it. So, says the Gemara, turns out to be one of the fields was stolen, never belonged to the husband in the first place. The argument is, if a later, let's say, the law is that if one person lent money in January, another person lent money in February, the one who lent January has first right to collect from the assets to get repaid. What happens? The one February jumped in ahead and took, he who's also owed money, so he took the asset even though he should have waited. What happens then? And that's the argument. Whatever the second person collected, they had no right to, they had to give it up and give it back to the first one. So why should the last woman have to swear? She doesn't impact adversely to anyone. Because even if she took a property, if number 2 finds out that the property is no longer hers, she goes to number 4 and takes it right back. So the only time number 4 gets any property is when everyone already received theirs. So there's no point in making a swear. But Banana Sabar, Masha Gova, no, if she sees the property, it's a good seizure. So therefore now she's impacting on number 2. And maybe she already got paid out by the husband with a beautiful Rolex watch or something else. So therefore, she has to swear. That's what we learned. I say, everyone holds, Masha Gova, Loi Gova. I will say that everyone agrees that if you're from a later date and you had no right to collect at all, even if you went ahead and you collected, you have to give it back. You have to return it. So then what's the argument? You know what the argument is? Are we worried that if the fourth wife finds out that there's a possibility that she is going to lose the field to some other wife, it turned out to be that it was stolen, why should she invest money and time in the field? She would let it go pale, she would let it go drought, she would let it just fall to this wayside. And that's the argument. If you make her the banana says we are worried that she's going to let the land go because she's not going to put any money in it because she thinks maybe there's a prospect that I'm going to lose the land. I'm taking a risk. Why should I do it? So therefore, we make her swear. So this is really fooling her. So she thinks, if I'm swearing, I'm equal to everybody else. That means that I'm going to retain this property. So she'll invest time and money and effort into the property, even though she will lose it if it turns out to be the one the other fields are stolen. So this leads more to lends itself more to the pshat. At the moment, we have no idea that a field was stolen yet at all. It's just it's just a prospect. It could be stolen. We're not worried about that because life is full of risks, and she will invest time, effort, and money because hopefully none of the other fields were stolen. Abaye comes along and says, no. It has nothing to do with whether one of the fields turned out to be stolen. That's not what's going on here. You know the argument between it. When we say the fourth wife has to swear, who does she have to swear to? The first 3 women already collected the ksubah, so it's none of the business. Who is she swearing to? Obviously to the orphans. So what's the argument? And we learned previously that whoever wants to get paid out from orphans, including a woman, has to swear that she didn't get paid yet. So what's the argument in the Mishnah? The argument in the Mishnah is going to be if the orphans are over bar mitzvah or mas mitzvah. What happens then? Do you still have to swear to them or not? And that's the argument between Tanakama and Ben Nanas. Abaye Kshisha, Abaye, the older one, it's a different Abaye. Ika Benai, that's the argument. What does Abaye Kshisha say? The Tana Abaye Kshisha, Yisayimim Sha'amru, when we say that if you want to collect your debts, including a woman from orphans, Gedolim, even if they're adults, because they don't really know what their father did, they were not aware. They ain't surely they're minors, you have to swear to them. And therefore, Tanakama, less than Abaye Tanakama, disagreed about he holds our Mishnah talking about the orphans are adults. And Tanakama says, therefore, the woman does not have to swear the fourth woman because to the orphans, because they're adults and therefore they can't make a swear. On bananas, Islay the Bayik Shisha. Bananas will know that even for adults, even from adults, if the fourth woman wants to collect a ksubah, she's collecting for them, she needs to swear. Amar Abuna says, Hani Treachi, there were 2 brothers. Or Trei Shutfi, there were 2 partners. The Isla Hadini Bahadichat. 2 people had a business, they had a geschäft, they had a business. And they had an argument with somebody, and that person took, let's say, Reuben and Shimon had a business together, and they had an argument with Levi, and Levi took Reuben to court. But the case was really against the business, not against Reuben personally, it's against the business. Took Reuben to court, and Reuben lost. And had a dinner. Reuben went to court, let's say, with Levi, and Reuben lost. And the court ruled that Reuben has to reimburse Levi, or the business has to reimburse Levi. So the question is, can Shimon say, 1 second, I wasn't in court, I wasn't defended, and I think I could have argued our case much better. I'm not paying anything for my half of the business. Why should I pay out? So the question is, what happens in this case? So Shimon can say, he cannot say to Levi, I had nothing to do with the court case, leave me out of this. We don't say that. We'll say that Reuben was defending the business, not himself, and he was representing Shimon equally to himself, and therefore if they lost, they both lost, and they both have to pay. That's what the Rav Huna says. Says the Gemara, Ikla Rav Nachman L'Suda. Rav Nachman once came to the city of Suda. Shailuk, I got asked him a very similar question. What would you think the din is? Amalu, he said to them, well, mastisani. Says in our Mishnah, there were 4 women who want to collect the ksubah. The first wife swears to the second one, and Vishniya l'shlishi, the second wife is to the third one, and Shlishi l'levi, the third wife to the fourth one. The ilu d'shayna l'shlishi l'ktani. The first wife swears to the second one, I did not receive any money from my husband, so I'm collecting this particular asset for my ksubah. But she only swears to the second wife. She doesn't swear to the third wife. My timer, why doesn't she swear to every single wife? Why does she only swear to wife number 2? Why doesn't she swear to wife number 3, swear to wife number 4, and to each one tell them, look, our husband did not give me anything. any installments of the Kesuvos. You know why she doesn't have to swear? Because wife number 2 is standing there representing the other 2 women as well. So when she swears to wife number 2, she's actually swearing to all 4 women. That's why, to all 3 women. That's why she doesn't have to swear again. Same thing in the court case. When Reuven defended the business against Levi, he was not only representing himself, he was representing his partner Shimon as well. He was doing. She was this wife number 2 is representing 3 and 4. Says the Gemara, "Midami, how can you compare? Hasam over there, shvula echa, shvula meya. What are you comparing? Over there, what shvua is she going to make to wife number 2? That she swears the husband didn't give me any installments of the Kesuvos. If you require her to swear to wife number 3 or wife number 4, what's she going to say? Exactly the same thing. So when she swears our husband didn't give me any installments, down payments for the Kesuvos, it covers everybody because it's the same shvua for everybody. So of course you don't have to swear for number 3, number 4, not because number 2 represents the other ones. However, Hacha over here, Shimon has a valid taina. I wasn't in the court case. If I would have been there, I might have come up with better reasons why we don't owe any money to Levi, and therefore you failed. You fouled up. You pay. I'm not paying. Hacha Amar here, Shimon can validly say, Ilu ano havoi, if I would have been involved in this court case, to Inan Atfei, I would have had much better counter arguments, and therefore I'm not paying. If Levi wants money from me, he should take me to court. So the Gemara argues with Rav Nachman and Rav Huna, and they say that in the case of a court case like that, even though you're going against the business, if you took only one person to court, then that person that person has to pay out the whole thing from his share of the business, and the other party doesn't. So the Gemara, but when does this work? If the other party, Shimon, let's say, wasn't in the city, and he wasn't aware of the court case, he wasn't around, he couldn't have attended. If he was in town, he just didn't bother showing up in court, and Reuven did all the defending, then he boiled a mason. That if you had better arguments, you should have come to court, and you didn't. That means you're forfeiting your rights, and you've given it over to Reuven. And if Reuven lost, you're just as culpable as Reuven, you're just as responsible as Reuven. Now, our Mishnah then continued talking about what happens if there were 2 shtaros written on the same day, but one was in the morning, let's say, one was AM, one was PM. And we're talking about, let's say, the Kesuvos were on the same day, one was AM, one was PM. Then they both equally, so it depends where you are. In Yerushalayim, where the times were recorded in the contract, the times are very important. So one was AM, one was PM. AM predates PM. But in other places, if they don't write down the times, it's the day. So even though one was AM, one was PM, it doesn't take effect till the following day because you didn't write the time. As if it happened the last minute of the day, they're both equal. But if they're both written at the same time, both recorded at the same time, then obviously they both equally divide whatever assets are available to divide. Okay, says the Gemara, it will be learned. What happens? You have 2 contracts to 2 people. This person sold the same house to 2 different people, or to the same field to 2 different people on the same day. But there was no time written on it. What do you do then? Rav says, well, we don't know which contract was real and which one wasn't. So the best thing to do is chalkin. Let's divide. And Shmuel says, no. Shuda the Dayanim. The best thing is let the Dayanim make up which is the best. Let the Dayanim work it out. There's a big argument, Rashi and Tosfos, whenever we have this legislation called Shuda the Dayanim. What is it? Shuda the Dayanim could be, there's 2 ways of understanding. Rashi learns Shuda the Dayanim is actually a psak. Shuda the Dayanim means that you enter the person's mind and you try to work out who do you think he actually intended to sell the property to? Who's a closer friend? We had it before. A neighbor, a Talmud Chacham, and all that. Who did he really want to give it to? And that's what Shuda Dayanim is. And according to Rabbeinu Tam, Shuda Dayanim means no. It's totally up to the Dayan who he thinks he wants to give it to. The word Shuda means to throw, toss it. Now, what exactly the argument? Very interesting argument. Rav holds if you divided, you definitely got 50% right. Because you're giving each one 50%, and definitely one of them, the sale is real. So definitely you got 50% right. Shmuel says, if you divide, you definitely got 50% wrong, because you're giving it to both, and he only really wanted to sell it to one. It's better to take the risk and only give it to one of them, and there's a chance you'll get 100% right. Could be you get 100% wrong, but it could be you get 100% right, and that's a better outcome. And Rav says, no, that's a terrible outcome. What if you get it 100% wrong? At least the other way, you got 50% right. And that's the argument between the two. But anyway, so right now, the Gemara wants to say first, Lema, that Gemara will conclude that. First, the Gemara says, Lema, there's a big argument. Well, how Gemara Gittin? When you have a contract, especially there it talks about Gittin, but all contracts, you have a get, and you have two witnesses who sign in the get, they sign the document, and then when the husband presents the get to the wife, he has to do it in front of two witnesses. So the witnesses who sign are known as Eidei Chasima, and the witnesses who are present when the get is being given to the wife, they're called Eidei Mesira. They're the witnesses who witness the giving. The question is, which are the primary witnesses? Those who witness the transaction, or those who witness the signing of the document? Who are the main Eides? So Machlekes Rav Meir and Rabbi Elazar. Rav Meir says the main Eides is the Eidei Chasima, so that the moment they sign, that's when the shtar becomes effective, even before you gave it over. And according to Rabbi Elazar, no, it's Eidei Mesida. The only reason why we have witnesses signing a document is a tikkun olam. What happens if you can't find Eidei Mesida? If somebody questions the shtar, the validity of the shtar. So therefore, if we have two witnesses signed, then we know the shtar is correct. So we're going to say that in fact is the argument between Rav and Shmuel, and it goes as follows. Rav holds like Rav Meir that says Eidei Chasim Mekar, said that it's the signature of the Eidim that activate the get. So since you have two contracts written on the same day, and since you did not record the time of day when it happened, it shows clearly that your mind was that the time doesn't really matter. So now, you wrote two studies. So what do you mean should the diner? It's obvious you want to give them both because you didn't write a time and the Eidim activated star. You want to give them both. So therefore, we divide it. However, Shmuel says, he was like a Eidim Sidikash. The main thing is the witness will see it. And therefore, one of them got it first and one of them got it second. We just don't know which one it is. But so therefore, it's only one person who deserves it. So therefore, should it die? And hopefully we get it right. No, the Rav holds Cholkim not because we don't know what to do, it's because we believe it belongs to both. The fact that you didn't write the time and the fact that the shtar becomes activated as soon as the Eidim sign means, what are you telling us? That you wanted both of them to have a share in that property. So therefore, Cholkim is the right psak. And Shmuel says no. One of them got it first, one of them got it second. We just don't know which one got it first, which one got it second. So therefore, we have to choose. We have to get a guess, an educated guess, which one he wanted to give the whole thing to. That's how we initially wanted to learn Pshat. Said no. Why turn them into machlekes? I'll say, everyone knows like Rabbi Elazar, which is the halacha. And the argument the way I told you originally. Rav Savar, since we don't know, everyone holds the Eidim Asidim. So one of them definitely receives the karka, one of them doesn't. We just don't know who. So Rav says, in the case we don't know who, it's haluk is better. At least 50% you definitely got right. And Shmuel says, should the dina differ because you could be, you definitely got 50% wrong. If you're going to give each one a half, you definitely got it wrong. If you give one person the entire property, there's a chance you got it 100% right. So 100%, a 50% chance of 100% right is better than 100% chance that 50% is right. That's basically what the argument here is. Says the Gemara, how can you tell me that everyone agrees the halach is like Rabbi Elazar? Didn't Rabbi Yehuda say Rav halacha? Rabbi Elazar, the Gittin Rav says, when do we rule like a Rabbi Elazar? Only when it comes to divorce. But not when it comes to other contracts. In other words, he holds like Rav Meir actually. Shmuel says no, af bishtaris. Miklal, so it's clear. The Rav holds bishtaris loy, but other contracts no. Ella, you're right. Machvarta, what's clear is that Rav Meir. Let's go back to the original way we learned. Rav holds like Rav Meir, and Shmuel holds like Rabbi Elazar. The Rav holds like Rav Meir, that therefore it definitely belongs to both of them. That's why we split. And Shmuel says it goes like Rabbi Elazar because definitely only one of them got it. Because Eidim Mesira, the people who witness it, we just don't know which one. Says the Gemara, Meisri, I'll ask you a question. We learned it says clearly in the Brisa, you have two contracts coming out on the same day, you divide. It says clearly a kasha on Shmuel, to you to the Shmuel. Shmuel says, you give it to one of them. I'm not talking about a mayor. Most problem. That authors are mayor who hold that since there's no time written on the contract, that means he wants both of them to have half. I follow Rabbi Elazar. Says the Gemara, mayor. If you can tell me that Brisa is mayor, let's continue reading the Brisa. It says the aim of Sefer. Let's continue reading the Brisa where it says, what happens? He wrote to one of them. He wrote the star. Let's say Reuven. He wrote a star. This person wrote a star to Reuven, but he didn't give it to him until he wrote a second contract, and he gave the second one in front of Edom Asira before he gave the first one. In other words, he gave the one that he wrote for Shimon, which was 2 hours after he wrote for Reuven, and he gave that one to Shimon, or the next day, whatever. But he gave that to Shimon before he gave it to Reuven. Whoever received the star first is koine. Now that will only work according to Rabbi Lazar, because he says it's the transference of the star that activates the star. Because according to Rabbi Meir, it's not the transfer of the star, it's the signing of the document. So what if you gave Shimon's star first, but Reuven's document was written first? Reuven should be the sole owner. Says, you're right. You're right. Tanoi. So even going back to what we said before, it's a machlekes tanoim. What is machlekes tanoim? This thing of what's better to do, to divide or should divide? Is it better to do to give 100% that 50% is right? Is better than 50% that of 100% is better as chalukah? The other one says the other way around. We learned Chacham say yachleikum. What happens the following? Reuven asked the shliach to go and give $100 to Shimon. He goes to Shimon's house. He finds Shimon is dead. He goes back to Reuven to tell him what happened. He finds Reuven dead. What does he do with the money now? Did Reuven intend to give it to Shimon or his heirs, or did Reuven only intend to give it to Shimon, and if Shimon's not around, bring it back? He doesn't know. So what should the shliach do with the money now? Who should he give it to? He has to give it to somebody. What should he do with it? So one opinion says give it to the heirs of Shimon. The Chachamim say you divide it equally between the two. So we say what the Chachamim say yachleiku here. Chachamim say yachleiku. The Chachamim say you divide, because dividing is better. And the Kanom, but in Bavel they say Masha Yitzar Shliach Yasa. In Bavel they say, you know what? Let the shliach make an arbitrary decision, whichever one he wants to give it to. It's up to him. If he deems to give the Shimon children, give the Shimon children. If he deems to give Reuven. So we see clearly to me there's an argument between Bavel and Yisrael whether Shuda the Daina or whether Yachleikum. Says the Gemara, an interesting story. He made the Rami Bar Chama. It's hard to understand exactly what was going through her mind, but the mother of Rami Bar Chama, Kasvinul and the Chasal Rami Bar Chama, Bitzafra, she decided to give over all of her assets to her son Rami in the morning. Obviously, she must have got into a fight with Rami during the day. So that very day in the afternoon, she decided to change her will. Kasvinul Mar Ukva Bar Chama. She gave it to her brother, all of her assets to Ukva. So now the question is what happens? Also, Rami Bar Chama went to Kamei de Rav Sheshes. He went to Rav Sheshes, who was the Rav in the city, and he said, "What should I do? My star was written in the morning. My brother's star, Rav Ukva, in the afternoon. Who gets it?" Ukva benichse. And so Rav Sheshes said, "You get it first because your star was written first." Also, Marukva the Kanon Nachman. Marukva was undeterred. He went to his rabbi Rav Nachman, told him the story. Ukva benichse. Rav Nachman says, "You get it." Also, the Kanon Nachman. Rav Sheshes went from Nachman. Amalei my time over Hachi. Why did you do what you did? Why did you decide the first one get it? Amalei, he asked Rav Nachman, why did you give it to Marukva? Amalei my time over Hachi. Rav Sheshes, why did you give it to Rami? So he said to him, Amalei the Kodim. You know why I gave it to Rami? Because he was written first. Are we living in a Yerushalayim where they used to write down the hours? The Kasvina Shas. Here we don't write down hours. So therefore, just because we know what happened in the morning is meaningless. The fact that it was written first doesn't mean anything. Elamar, my time off. So why did you give Maruk for that? I should have dined it because I believe like Shmuel should have dined, and I decided we should give it to Maruk. No, if that's the case. It's not. You tell me it's not really a psak. It's just an arbitrary decision. So I decided Rami should get it. What right do you have now to overturn my psak? Amalei said to him something very interesting. First of all, I'm a qualified dayan, and even though Rav Sheshes was an Amayra, unbelievable Talmid Chacham, but you're not a dayan. And Tosa says that from here we learn now that you need a special smicha for dayanis. If you don't have a special smicha dayanis, you don't have that authority from the Reish Galusa. Your psukim can be overturned. Number one. But number two, now you give me Bubmais, he says. You told me the reason why you gave it to Rami was because he was there first in the morning, not because you made an arbitrary decision. You heard what I said, you changed your mind. Too late. Another story. There were two starters that came from Rabbi Yosef. One of them was a date and written the 5th day of Nisan. The other one just had the Kosev by Nisan. They wrote Nisan, but they forgot to write what day of Nisan it was. Now we don't know which is first, which is second. Stama, just like that, without recording which day. Also, excuse me. And there's only one property for them to collect. The question is who gets it? The one from the 5th of Nisan? Now, could very well be the one that had no date on it was actually the 1st day of Nisan. Maybe he predates the 5th day of Nisan. Rabbi said the one who wrote the 5th day of Nisan, the one who said 5th day of Nisan should get it. I'm losing out. The fact that you have no date on it means that the onus of proof is on you. Maybe it could very well be that your star was recorded on the 29th day of Nisan. So day number 5 precedes you, and therefore he gets first a shot at it. He said, okay. So therefore, at least give me a note saying that I can collect any property that was sold after Rosh Chodesh Iyar. I can collect that because even if my star was written on the 29th day of Nisan, I still predate any property that was sold post that. So give me at least a document saying that I can go carte blanche to anyone to collect my assets from anybody who bought a property after Rosh Chodesh Iyar. He said to him, no. You'll go to another buyer and he'll say, 1 second, maybe your star is the 1st day of Nisan, so therefore you should never have lost your property. You should have collected from that property that other guy collected. It's not my problem. You go fight it out with the other guy because he took your property and leave me out of it. He's in a limbo now. State of limbo. What should we do? So he says, what he has to do is he has to go to the other lender and say, look, let's write a common document here that that you're giving me your property over to me. And therefore, this way we can go to anyone who bought properties after the Chodesh Iyar and try to collect the property. If he says, I should have gotten the property, I say, but you gave me the property over to me and he didn't collect yet. So you owe him. And if he says, but he did get a property, then I'll say, but I didn't collect yet. You owe me. So you owe one of us. And that's how we collect our money. We'll pause for a minute, please.